What's up, everyone? My name is ZayNews, and this is the ZayNews Podcast, where we talk about all things hoops, whether it's the NBA, college basketball, youth basketball, you name it. If it's about hoops, then we talk about it here. If you like the content, as always, make sure to like, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, leave a comment, and let me know if my takes are absolute trash, or let me know if I'm on the point, right? Tell me where you disagree, and let's dive into it. I'm always up for a debate about basketball. Now, as you know, we are in the thick of college basketball, NBA basketball, and I wanted to start with just a roundup of the NBA, everything that's going on, how teams are performing, because it's been a couple weeks since I did this last podcast. So let's get into it. Hope you're having a great holiday. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. And I hope your preparation for Christmas and New Year's is going well. So without further ado, let's start here and let's just do a quick roundup of the NBA's Western Conference, teams that are playing well, teams that I think could use some work, and where everybody is falling. Now, I'm going to skip over the Los Angeles Lakers just because I'm going to do a separate segment for them. But starting with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, Jalen Williams just returned from his injury about a week ago. I think he's played in 2, possibly 3 games so far. And he's ingratiating himself well, right? Last game he had like 21, 22 points on some really good efficiency. And typically, anytime you're coming back from injury, excuse me, anytime you're coming back from injury, and same in the case of Jalen Williams, sometimes your offense takes a while to get going, right? And that's been evident, with LeBron James just taking a while to find his flow in offense as he's gotten back into, the rotation with the Los Angeles Lakers. But back to Jalen Williams. So first 1 or 2 games, struggled a little bit offensively, didn't shoot the ball particularly well, but that's to be expected, right? They have a good thing going. And the nice thing about Jalen Williams is that his impact is not solely predicated on what he can do on offense because he's such a high-level defender, right? So, and when you have a team around you that defends at the same level as you do, it's very easy just to take on that culture and ingratiate yourself back into the game. So, I think they've done a great job of bringing Jalen, such a big prominent part of their team, back into their lineup and still playing at a high level. And the nice thing is for OKC is that they're just at such a level of head of everybody else right now that they can do all these things, right? They can have one guy out of the lineup, bring him back, adjust. They can, they're constantly kind of plugging and playing guys throughout the season. One guy may sit here, another guy comes in, steps up, knows his role, and just fills it seamlessly. And that's what we're seeing, right? When you have such a leg up on the competition, these moves, these changes don't affect you as much. And also, when you just have such a good camaraderie and chemistry amongst your team, that also kind of blankets you for some of these things as well. So, to be honest, every time I watch OKC, I'm just blown away because the way that they play so well together, the way Shea is just such a good leader and such the perfect superstar for that roster, right? One of the best isolation scorers I think the game has ever seen at this point, and I don't think that's hyperbolic at all to say, and just really fun to watch, right? And just segueing over to Shea more specifically for a minute, uh, he's playing at such a high level, right? Like, oh my goodness, the shooting splits being, dang near a 50-40-90 guy, 55% from the field nearly. Um, it seems like every game, right, he just walks his way into 30, right? He scores 30 just about as easy, if not easier, than anybody I've ever seen. And it's not like his 3-point volume is extremely high, right? Like he's only shooting 5, maybe 6 a game. That's only about 1 more 3 a game than what Kobe took in some of his more high scoring seasons back when the 3-pointer just wasn't as prominent. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that really impresses me about Shea is that he gets his work done from inside the 3-point line in large part, right? And now his 3 ball's coming along to where he's hitting it at just a higher percentage, and it's just he's lethal, man. He's lethal. He's comfortable, and he's still able to compete at a pretty high level on the defensive end of the floor. Now, don't get me wrong. I also think on the flip side of that, he has the perfect roster around him to just highlight all of his best attributes and cover up some of the areas where he maybe isn't as good. But in the same sense, right, he's perfect for that team as well, and it's just a match made in heaven. So been really fun to watch. They're really dominating. Don't get me wrong. When I look out amongst the rest of the West, I think teams will close that gap, right? Like I think over the course of a season, as teams improve, they will close that gap. But when you think about it, right, OKC should have a leg up. Now, I don't know if 21-1 was expected, but they should be the best team in the West right now because you go from winning a championship, not losing anybody, and not only that, winning a championship with a young roster where the guys are still improving. You go into the summer, you have a shortened summer, so your chemistry going into the next season is naturally going to be better than everybody else's because you just played the longest season out of everybody else, and you have guys who are still progressing, right? So everything they learned from that championship, they're able to take with them. Everything that all the work that they put in over the summer, they're able to take and just apply that to what they have going on now and supersede what they did last year. So I think these guys are just they have a leg up as they should, and they will continue to have a leg up for a little while. But I think towards the end of the season, when guys really start to mesh, teams like Denver, they're still trying to work in all their new pieces. They've been looking really good. Don't get me wrong. Still trying to work guys in, and over time, I think that gap is going to close as it gets closer to the playoffs. And I think we're preparing ourselves for a highly competitive playoffs. Now, OKC is going to be the favorite, obviously, but I really think a team like Denver with, the best player in the world over there in Nikola Jokic can really give them a run for their money if they both go into the playoffs healthy and just playing their best basketball. And then you got teams like the Rockets, who I think could challenge OKC in its own right if they met in like the second round because they're they're able to match them athletically. The physicality they're able to match. Offensively is where it would get tough for them, right? Don't get me wrong, I like Reed Shepard. I think Reed Shepard would struggle in a series versus OKC. KD's going to get his. He's going to find ways to be successful. But can they score enough points to keep up with OKC? Because I think defensively, they could definitely be there. Spurs started off the season really great. I thought Wemby was playing at an MVP caliber before he got injured, but at this point they're still keeping their heads above water, well above water, might I add. You bring in De'Aaron Fox, you got all these guys like Vasil, you got Harper back in the lineup. He had 16 points last night, and they're doing a great job, similar to OKC, of just plugging guys in, playing hard, and if you get Wemby back the last half of the season and you're able to really develop some chemistry, look out for them in the playoffs, right? Because defense, the importance of defense is really starting to become prominent again, and I love to see it. And, what you see with the Spurs is that when they have Wemby on the floor, right, they automatically become one of the most dangerous defensive teams just because the ground he covers, his ability to protect the rim, and the comfort level he gives his guards to pressure the ball, knowing that they got a guy like him behind them who could just come clean everything up. So I think the Spurs could really, if health is not a factor, all that sort of stuff, come back healthy and just, able to play at a high level, they can cause some problems to anybody, right? Be top 4, top 5 seed and really start to put the pressure on everybody. Lastly, team that I'll touch on a few more teams really briefly, but, Minnesota, since Anthony Edwards came back, has really started to find their groove. Edwards is playing at a pretty high level right now, and it's cool to see. They are a team who I thought would regress a little bit from last season just because I didn't think that they made the moves that some of the other teams in the West made, and that does appear to be the case right now. But they're still close, they're still competitive, and I think they'll be a lock for a playoff seed come April. Suns beat up on the Lakers the other day. Dylan Brooks, he's someone who I'm going to have a segment about here in a little bit, but he went off on us. Their competitiveness, their ability to defend at a high level and be physical is something that's fun to watch. And, they're young enough where they can match athleticism with some of those other teams. They played OKC pretty tough a week or two ago as well, and they're good to see. And then lastly, let's touch on the Warriors, right? The Warriors are, just in a weird spot, right? Weird spot. They have all their aging guys. Steph has been a little bit in and out of that lineup recently. And, I saw a few people have this take where they weren't sure how the Warriors were going to do. I do think post All-Star deadline or post trade deadline last season was a little bit of fool's gold for them. I think for a squad, an older squad like them, it just kind of gave them an energy boost, and that was a little bit of fool's gold. But in reality, they're going through some of the stuff right now, and I think for them, they need a center. They need a guy who's going to play with some physicality, and they just don't have that right now, and that would go a long way. Even though they got Horford, obviously, but they need a guy who can play a little bit more, be a little bit more physical, play back-to-back, stuff like that. So that's my thoughts on, the Warriors. Okay, but moving on to the Eastern Conference. Just got done talking about the Western Conference. Want to spend a little bit of time on the East. Should be a little bit briefer, but let's get into it. So starting with the Detroit Pistons. Man, do I love the brand of basketball that they have been playing, right? Between Cade Cunningham just being a dog, between Jalen Duren just being a dog, starting to get guys like Tobias Harris back in the lineup. Duncan Robinson has filled that Malik Beasley role really well. His gravity as a shooter, even though he's only averaging, 11-ish points, still shooting the ball at a high clip. His the way he comes off screens with pace and stuff just really draws and wears on defenses, right? And they've been able to capitalize on all of that stuff and just play a really good brand of basketball. And they are another team who has had injuries, has had guys in and out of the lineup, but because they compete at a high level and because they defend, Sir Thompson may be the best non-big defender in the NBA this season, right? He may be doing a better job than his brother over there in Houston. And they, because of that defensive pressure, their youth, their ability to get up and down, they have been able to sustain themselves through injuries as well. And it's really cool to see them competing at such a high level, man. And when you think about 2 seasons ago, was it 14 games, 16 games they won, to last season 44 to 46? I think it was 46. And then to this season, who knows, right? Could be a 55 plus win team potentially with the rate at which they're going. Very exciting stuff to see. Very exciting stuff to see out of the Detroit Pistons. And I see Cade Cunningham, 24 years old, getting quite a few knocks when people look at his efficiency stats, just because they don't look as good on paper as opposed to some of the other players around the league, right? We know how much efficiency bleeds into any argument that you have when you're comparing players or when you're just talking about a player individually, right? People tend to lean into efficiency, and if you're not as efficient as someone may like, that ultimately really tears you down as a player in today's context, in the way we talk and think about the game today. And I have to tell you guys, for me, I love the way Cade is playing basketball, and I don't give him any demerits for for the efficiency being lower than some of the other guards across the league, because I think he carries more of an offensive burden than a lot of the other guards around the league, right? I don't think he's playing with the same caliber of offense than some of the other elite superstar level guards, right? He's not playing with the same caliber of offense that Shea has. He's not playing with the same caliber of offense that even Luka has out in LA. He's not playing with the same caliber of offense that Jalen Brunson has on the Knicks. He's not playing with the same caliber of offense as Anthony Edwards potentially on Minnesota, right? And I can go down the list. And he's also, his shot profile and the way he gets his buckets is a little bit different, right? Like, he's not someone who's shooting a ton of threes or shooting threes at a high clip. And that also brings his efficiency numbers down. But I bring all this up to say is, a lot of times he's going out on his shield, right? And they're winning because of it, right? He's going out being ultra aggressive, and they need him to be ultra aggressive, and that can lower his percentages in a lot of different ways. But that's okay to me, because he's not, his lack of efficiency, that let's say, in comparison to some of these other players, isn't because of him being selfish. It isn't because he's taking bad shots. It isn't necessarily always because he's making bad decisions. Sure, there are some of those things, which every player does make, and sure, he could be more efficient in spots. And I think some of that is just about his growth and him learning the game a little bit more. But also, it's just about him needing to keep pressure on the defense, needing to continue to put his foot on their necks, because he is their offense generator in large respects, right? He's their assister, he's their scorer, he's all of that, right? He encompasses a lot of different parts of their offense. And as a guard, it is tough to stay efficient while doing that, right? No disrespect to Shea, and Shea is definitely their most prominent offensive piece. And I'm not saying that Cade is better than Shea by any stretch. I think what Shea is doing, he quite possibly could be the best player in the NBA. We could argue that. But with that being said, right, I think Shea has less responsibility on his shoulders to need to create for his guys, right? Like, when Shea has the ball in his hands, I'm going to score that thing. And then I got guys around me who can shoot it. I got guys around me who can facilitate. I got guys around me who can make plays for themselves a little bit more than what Cade has over there in Detroit. Not to say that Cade doesn't have none of that, right? Jalen Duren has been excellent. You got a guy like Tobias Harris who in a vacuum and at his spots can get buckets for you where needed. But still, right, when you're talking about generating 120-ish points of offense per game, right, a lot of that is going to fall on Cade's shoulders. And I think it falls on him more than it does for other guys. Therefore, bringing down his efficiency stats just because a lot's being asked of him. That's all I'll say on that. But I think he's doing a great job of handling it, and I think Detroit is better because of it. The Raptors have been a really nice surprise, and I love the way that RJ, Scotty Barnes, and Ingram have really meshed, right? That team, right? I think everybody thought when they were collecting all these assets that the fit was going to be wonky with all these different wings who do different things, and we just weren't sure. And they've done an exceptional job. And then you add Quickly in there, who's healthy, who's been playing well. You got, the Portal over there at the center, excuse me, and you got some good bench pieces. And they're another team who's just extremely athletic, who can get after it, play at a high pace, and really defend at a high level, especially when you're talking about guys like Scotty Barnes who could defend his butt off. But you're talking about the length that they have at the wing spots. They have a solid center, and they're just doing some really good stuff. Really good stuff. They know who does what, right? You saw Brandon Ingram get that ball off the miss and go hit that game winner against Indiana last week, right? They know who to get the ball to in the right spots. They know where guys are effective, and they're just playing super well off each other. And they have been a nice surprise and a really fun team to watch. Moving on to the Miami Heat. Miami Heat, boy, do they play fast. You know what I'm saying? Boy, do they play really fast. And they're another team that's really fun to watch because they're also playing different than a lot of other teams, right? Much less pick and roll heavy offense, much more continuity based stuff, pass, cut, play off a guy's drive, play off a guy's advantage, and just playing basketball, right? Playing basketball, but playing it at a high pace, getting up and down, having bigs that can switch, who can guard on the perimeter, who can facilitate offense on the offensive end of the floor. Really just makes it so that they can play with a lot of continuity. They can play with a lot of variety, I think is the word I was looking for. And they can do a lot of different things. Um, so fun to watch. I think Miami, if the playoffs started today, they would maybe be my favorite to come out of the East, to be honest with you. And I think that they're going to continue to get better as Tyler Hero gets more chemistry with the group and this new play style and how they want to do things. I think they're just going to continue to get better. And they could come out of the East. I wouldn't be surprised. Moving on to the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks, I'm on the brink of calling them kind of a not frauds because they do compete at a high level. Jalen Brunson is a dog, but I just don't believe in them the way that I did over the summer. If you asked me over the summer, I would have said they should be the favorites to come out of the East. I just don't feel that way about them. I don't know if they'd beat Detroit because they don't defend consistently enough. I don't know if they'd beat Toronto, and I definitely don't think that they would beat the Heat in a playoff series, at least as it stands today. I think they're going to be kind of the same as they were last year. Second, maybe they make it to the conference finals. I could see them losing in the second round. I just don't have the same belief in them, to be honest with you. Orlando's been interesting because they've really been playing well. The Magic have really been playing well, but it's been without Paolo Banchero. And I know people will say, yes, we've seen this before. They really start to pick up the pace. I think some of it's coaching. I think it's coaching and Paolo just having to mature a little bit. But I think they'll be okay. I think Paolo will be okay, and I think they'll figure it out. I just think they're a few years removed from really contending in the Eastern Conference, like championship, getting to the finals. I think Cleveland needs Darius Garland. I'll leave it at that, to be honest with you. I think they need Darius Garland if they want to be the team that's atop of the East like they were last year. And I also think Evan Mobley, what's so funny? First game of the season, I thought, oh, it was the first half of the first game of the season. I was like, oh, Evan Mobley is for real. He might be in MVP talks if he keeps playing like this. Second half, and since then, haven't felt that way one other time. But for a minute, I was like, oh my goodness, who is this guy? It's just interesting to watch how that happens. And I think for him, just getting more confident and getting more assertive would take Cleveland to the next level, plus having Garland back in the lineup. But it seems like he has a mental block that's preventing him from really pushing to that next level. So I don't know. And just a few more teams I want to talk about out east, and that is the Atlanta Hawks, the Boston Celtics, and the 76ers. So just starting with Atlanta, I was really high on Atlanta coming into the season with the offseason that they had. I did not expect them to be playing so well without their quote-unquote best player, or at least who we would presume was their best player heading into the season in Trae Young. But they've been playing great basketball. And I think the thing that we didn't have foresight on is that they would have guys who could fill those gaps that Trae Young may have left if he's off the court, and that is the facilitating and playmaking, which Jalen Johnson has been a great playmaker and facilitator. Um, kind of in his newfound growth and success this season. And then you got a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and obviously, the scoring part has been dispersed evenly amongst the team, but him coming in and really showing that he can be a high-level scorer in the NBA has really helped that team as well. And that's with, again, not just Trae Young in and out of the lineup or out of the lineup at this point, but also a guy like Kristaps Porzingis in and out of the lineup, and a few of their other guys just not being prominent fixtures so far this season because of injuries and things like that. So it's been really fun to watch. They kicked the Lakers' tails like 2 weeks ago with 4 starters out, and it was one of the most painful games to watch as a Lakers fan. I hate those games where they just from the opening tip that they just don't have the energy and the uh, physicality and the right attitude to go and win a game, and you just have to suffer through it as a fan, and it sucks to watch. It sucks to watch, but they just had another stinker like that against Phoenix 2 days ago. So I guess it's just part of the job as a Lakers fan. But anyways, Atlanta's been playing great, and it's been really fun to watch. Moving on to Boston. I said before the season I thought Boston and the Pacers, even though they both had lost their best players, would still be competitive. Now, I did not consider that the Pacers were ultimately going to decide just to tank, but to me it feels like the Pacers have decided to tank. That plus also losing Miles Turner, which was unexpected, plus having guys in and out of the lineup due to injuries like Benedict Mathurin and a few of their other guys who have been in and out of lineups. Goes to show how important Tyrese Halliburton was, but also I think they just decided to tank. But back to my original point about the Boston Celtics, I felt like that they were going to be competitive even with Jason Tatum out, and they were going to be a playoff team because their habits and their systems. I think people undervalue how far that can take you as a team, especially when you have guys who are willing to buy in. And for the last 3, 4, 5 years, Boston has always had guys who are willing to buy in and make the most of the system that they're playing in. And they did that again this year. Peyton Pritchard's taking a step. He's playing really well. Jaylen Brown is looking like an MVP caliber wing, even though they won't win enough for him to be in like legitimate MVP talks. But he's averaging like 28, 6 and 6 or something like that, playing good, solid defense. Probably not the elite levels of defense that we've seen in previous portions of his career, but still good defense. And they're going to be in that playoff race as well. You know what I'm saying? And once you get past these teams, right, like things start to have a precipitous drop in terms of rankings and stuff. So even if they are in the play-in, right, I think a team like Chicago, they'll get past relatively easy, and then they'll be competitive with whoever is at the top of the East and who they would line up with, even if they had to fight to get in through the play-in. And I think the same about the 76ers. I think the 76ers will be in that play-in range, but come the end of the season, whoever they match up with in the play-in that's under, that 10 spot, right? So Chicago, Milwaukee, none of those other teams are going to be in the play-in race, but any of those other teams, I think they'll be, and they'll make sure that they get a playoff spot. So I think the top 8 are pretty solidified. Well, I guess, so it'll be tough. It'll be tough for them because they're going to have to play a team like Atlanta or Boston or something like that. But they'll be in that hunt. And if they get the right matchup, a guy like Tyrese Maxey is electric, especially for one game. Boy can get it up. So it'll be interesting to see how they do come playoff time. But I really like what they've put together and the effort that they've been playing with. They're running Tyrese Maxey into the ground, but they kind of have to at this point. I think rookie out there, I don't know why his name escapes me. Started out the season really strong. I think he's came back down to earth a little bit. But that's just a result of being a rookie, right? You start to figure things out, or teams start to figure things out. They start to game plan for you, and he just has to figure stuff out, right? How to maneuver, out of out of doubles off screens, how to get off the ball, catch the ball in your spots, be ready to score, all of that sort of stuff. Just how to make the game easier, right? Like right now he struggles to make plays um, on second line defenses. He struggles to make plays out of doubles, out of rushes off screens and stuff like that. So as he gets more comfortable, as the game slows down for him, he'll go a long way and it'll be okay. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the East. I'm going to move into some more specific segments here in a second. And moving on, in a weird turn of events, it was reported that last night Chris Paul was cut from the Los Angeles Clippers in the most Los Angeles Clippers move that they could have made, right? You cut your franchise cornerstone for the better part of a decade back in the 2010s, in the middle of the night without any warning, really. And just a weird move, right? Weird move. Um, to me, it's like, do you not know what you were signing up for in the summer when you signed him, right? A 41-year-old point guard in year 21. Uh, and to be honest with you, right, like, I know people have said that they've watched Chris Paul play, right? I've heard kind of the sentiment around Chris Paul and how he can't play anymore, essentially is what's been drawn. But I have to tell you guys, I think there's something to be said for especially old players staying in it, staying in condition. And you hear players talk about it a lot, right? But starting and stopping is so tough. So you're asking a guy in Chris Paul, for one, who has literally never came off the bench in his career, to now come off the bench in his final season, which, okay, I'm not saying that he should have started, but I am saying that's a lot to ask of a guy in year 21. Now, set that aside and move on. And now you're giving him DMPs, you're playing him sparse minutes, and you're expecting him to have the same effect on a team that he has had in the past. Even last year, we saw that Chris Paul's leadership, the way he conducts himself, and even his play on the court be very impactful for the San Antonio Spurs. Now, eventually you hit a wall and you just can no longer do it anymore, and maybe he just hit a wall. But I think there's something to be said for, if you're going to bring a 41-year-old point guard in, you have to give him consistent opportunity to play, to ingratiate himself into the team, into the flow of the game, and to be conditioned enough to play, right? Ultimately, right? Because we know in the new NBA you're not practicing, you're not scrimmaging, so you're not getting those sorts of looks anywhere outside of the games. And if you're hardly playing in the games, right, you're stiff, you're second guessing things, your timing's not right, and that is detrimental to a guy who's already lost so much of his athleticism and reaction time and all that sort of stuff that happens just naturally as you age. So it was just an unfair situation to me for Chris Paul to be in. Even if he played 15 minutes a game only, I think they would have been better off starting Chris Paul alongside James Harden. To be honest with you, 15 minutes a game, he doesn't have to play a lot. I'm not saying he has to, be a prominent um, guy and play the entire game and be your like focal point at 41 years old. But you bring him in, right? What's the point of bringing him in if you're not going to use him, right? Like, did you want him to just be a locker room guy? Did you guys have that conversation? Maybe. But Chris Paul strikes me as a guy, and he literally said this all summer as he was deciding where he was going to play. I just want to hoop. I just want to hoop. I just want to hoop. And you're not allowing him to hoop. Like, I think, and I mean, what they're doing is clearly not working, right? So let's not act like Chris Paul being in the lineup was going to make them any worse. First off, let's just add that context there. But with that being said, right, like, let him start, let him be comfortable at least in that regard. Play him 15 minutes a game. If he's playing good, extend it to 22, and um, let him just be a consistent pillar in the offense so you can maximize him. Right? I think Chris Paul, 15, 20 minutes a game, allowing him to have the ball in his hands a little bit, allowing James Harden to be your scorer because you need James Harden to be your scorer rather than being your scorer, your facilitator, your everything on offense, which that literally James Harden is their entire offense right now and is one of the reasons why they're so bad. You have a 36-year-old running your, having to do everything for you. Um, I think it could have helped them a little bit, right? And I think he could have had his imprint, his winning mindset, his winning intangibles more imprinted on the team. And maybe they're 500 right now as opposed to like 6-15 or whatever they are. So just thought it was a weird way for them to handle Chris Paul, bring him in, um, especially after last season, right? Like he showed he was effective. He showed he could still play the game and do a lot of positives. So it was just a weird, right? Like I don't know. Unless they had an agreement where they weren't going to play him, I don't know. But just weird. And now he's in a weird situation where like, who's going to sign a 41-year-old point guard? Maybe someone does. I'm sure someone will. And let him do his retirement tour if he wants to do that. But if I'm Chris Paul, also do I just want to sign to another team just to not play? Right? Like I wouldn't want to go anywhere that I can't play. Like what's the point of leaving home where my family's at and stuff? But also, do you want to retire in this context with being cut? That's a shitty way to retire too. So who knows? But I just feel bad for him. And I think the Clippers just once again are proving that there's not a well-run organization, and it sucks for a guy like Chris Paul who's given so much to the game and one of the best point guards to ever play the game. So we shall see. So Giannis Antetokounmpo, he comes back into the lineup after getting his groin injured last week. He's played the last 2 games, and rumors starting to come out in the trade mill, right? The Milwaukee Bucks stock is down after starting the season really hot. I don't think they won a game while Giannis was gone. They just lost a close one to the Wizards. Chris Middleton hit a dagger on him late in the game and sealed the deal for him. And now we're hearing Giannis has removed everything in regards to Milwaukee off of his socials and all this sort of stuff, yada yada yada. And I don't know. At the beginning of the season, I thought that they should trade Giannis. I wanted Giannis to get traded, just because I didn't think Milwaukee could put a winning team around him, and he's a guy who deserves to be playing winning basketball at this point in his career, still playing at an MVP caliber. But I can imagine it's tough. Now he's a guy who has a really strong mindset, a guy who competes at a high level no matter what. And I think his groin is still affecting him because it looks like his effort levels the past couple games haven't been all there. Sometimes you take some time off. It takes you a while to get back into it conditioning wise, and I think that's played a role in his effort level. But it sucks to see, right? It sucks to see that he's just not being able to play basketball at the level that we would like to see him play basketball at. Because when you have these guys who are generational guys, right, you really want to see them compete for championships every season, right? So ultimately, I think it's in both parties' interest between the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis to trade him at this point. I just don't think Milwaukee's good enough. I think they have some bright spots in guys like Ryan Rollins. KPJ is coming back. They've reignited Kyle Kuzma to a certain extent, right? He got off the Wizards and he got onto a team that was playing more meaningful basketball, and he's played pretty well this season. Not so good since Giannis has been off the court, but as we know, Giannis is a catalyst for a lot of great offense. And when you see the level that this team plays with Giannis versus without Giannis, you understand why. But just through all the attention he brings. But yeah, hopefully, at the very least, if they're not going to trade him, hopefully they can turn the season around. I mean, they're not so far out of the woods that they couldn't, still get into the playoff hunt and get over 500. But at this point, they're probably looking at playing at best and, probably being a first round exit. And it's just like, that's like 4 straight years of being first round exits for Giannis. 2 of those years, injury riddled years, obviously, that sort of stuff. But time for a trade. I don't know who's going to trade for him at this point in the season. We got teams that are doing well. At the beginning, like in the offseason, I thought the Spurs trading for him would have been brilliant. Him and Wemby as your front court would have been detrimental to the rest of the league, right? Like it would have been insane to watch, and the amount of pressure he puts on the rim would have really opened up the court for Wemby to play his perimeter-oriented game and really just continue to grow in that regard, and they would have been dangerous. But now, I don't think with the success that the Spurs are having and not wanting to give up their young assets and keep that young core together, I don't think they'll trade for Giannis. So a team like Miami potentially could pull the trigger and get some for him. I saw somebody say, would you swap Mobley for Giannis if you're Cleveland and really try to see if we can get this core group over the hill? Yes, I would do that if I was Cleveland, but we'll see. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe he sticks it out with Milwaukee till the offseason, but I doubt Milwaukee's going to want to lose Giannis for nothing. So this will be an interesting saga, and I think it's going to be there's going to continue to be talks about it until trade deadline is passed in February. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, but Giannis has to be on a winner. I would love for it to be in Milwaukee and him be able to be a lifer in Milwaukee. I think that would be great. That would be a great story for him and contend for another couple championships. But just with, their salary situation, cutting Dame, having to stretch that contract out, just signing Miles Turner, who was a great signing, but it's just they're in a weird predicament, and I don't know the likelihood of them actually being able to find their way back to that level of basketball. And it's not like Giannis is a young buck anymore. He's 31, I think, and we maybe have 3 more of these levels of seasons where he can be, MVP caliber guy, maybe 4, but we shall see. Anyways, want to talk about one more thing, which is the Los Angeles Lakers, and then I'll let you guys go. Okay, as always, I'm a Lakers fan, so I got to spend a little bit of time talking about the Lakers, where they're currently at, where I project them to be in the future, and if they're a legitimate championship threat or not, and do I think they can bridge that gap. So first and foremost, the Lakers have been playing really good basketball, right? And they have had some clear habit changes since JJ Redick took the helm, where they are beating the teams that they're supposed to beat, and they're having less lapses. For me, watching the Lakers like 2021 and on, post championship season up until before JJ Redick got there, there were just so many lapses. There were so many times where like they would lose games solely due to effort. They would lose games just playing bad basketball, not doing the little things. And essentially, it felt like they took on the culture of LeBron, and AD to a certain extent, which was, we can turn it on and off, right? LeBron, if there's one thing that I think is true is that he has shown that he can turn it on and off better than probably anyone in the history of the game, right? He knows how to conserve his energy. He knows how to pick and choose spots, when to go, when not to go, that whole thing. And it really felt like for a while the Lakers took on that identity. Role players were doing the same thing. Anthony Davis was doing the same thing. And, it just led to a lot of bad basketball moments. Now, because LeBron is the best ever at turning it on and off, he could turn it on, still make it to a conference championship versus the Denver Nuggets in 23, and still have success in the playoffs. And essentially, as long as they weren't playing against Denver, they were pretty well off, right? And they had a shot, right? But still, just a lot of bad basketball in between that, and it just never felt like it was a championship worthy team. And at least now, the habits, the culture has really started to shift. And I've noticed it a lot in Luka, right? Luka is complaining so much less to the refs, right? For, his time in Dallas into the later half of last season when he was on the Lakers. Every play was a complaint. It was yelling, it was theatrics, it was throwing your hands in the air, and it just got so annoying to watch, to be honest with you, that was happening every play. And that has minimized greatly. And I don't care some bickering at the refs, letting them hear it if they miss a call somewhat. But the extent that Luka was doing it was just draining. As a fan watching it, it was just like, ugh. You just didn't want to see that. And he's improved, right? And he's not only improved on that, he's improved in his willingness to put in effort on the defensive end of the floor. And those two things have really went a long way. And I think their culture is just improving, right? And so that's what I'll say first and foremost in the Lakers. I think they're winning more of the games that they're supposed to win, with a few questionable ones in there, right? Like losing to Atlanta with 4 stars out is a loss that just is really ugly to me. So there's still a little bit of that in there, but they've definitely gotten better. And they're definitely competing at a higher level from top to bottom. You got guys in there who are just coming in to give you effort. Bronny hasn't played in a while, but when he was on the court, he was competing at a very high level, more so just from an effort perspective. And you go down the list, and they got a lot of guys who are just competing at a high level. Laravia, Rui, DeAndre Ayton consistently has competed at a high level, which has been good to watch. Marcus Smart, obviously, you know what he's going to bring. Hopefully, he can get back on the court here soon. So those are the good things. A few things. LeBron is still playing himself back into shape, right? This has essentially been his training camp because he just wasn't able to train to the capacity that I think he would have liked to in preparation for the season. And as I said with Chris Paul, a 41-year-old, there's something to be said for staying in it, right? Staying conditioned. Because once you get out of it, the older you get, it's way harder to get back into it. You know what I'm saying? It's just the reality of it. And you can see it in the way LeBron is moving right now. First Phoenix yesterday, or on Monday night, he looked so blocky, right? I told my brother in a text, he looked like he was 63, right? He was trying to play hard defense on Dillon Brooks, and he was just every feint, every move, every wiggle that Dillon Brooks was doing was just having him, just reacting to everything. You know what I'm saying? And he just couldn't move and he couldn't catch up. People were getting downhill on him. He was missing backdoor reads. He just couldn't move, right? He just couldn't move, and I think that's going to continue to happen until he gets into his normal playing shape, right? Which is going to take a while, especially with him having to sit out certain games, sort of stuff, and just monitor his injuries and stuff, not playing back to backs, all that sort of stuff. So that's one thing that we're going to have to play through, because ultimately I still think LeBron on the court gives the Lakers their best shot, especially the LeBron that has showed up this year. Um, when he is able to move and move okay, assisting the ball, just making the right reads all the time, being one of our better spot up shooters, might I add. Just a huge piece. And I said before the season, I thought he was going to be our third leading scorer, and I think if he came in with that mindset, the Lakers would be better for it. And I still believe that. Ultimately, with LeBron, I just think LeBron needs time to play himself into condition. And that's just going to take a little bit more time. That's all. It's just going to take a little bit more time for him to play, get his feet up under him, get used to moving laterally again at a high pace, and figuring out how to pick his spots. Because each year, right, you lose a little bit of something. And this year, at 41, losing a little bit, even if it's a 0.5%, that's a big loss for someone at 41 who's trying to hang on and play at a high level still. He's so smart. He's been able to close the gap so well, but it's just something that he's going to have to continue to, work on getting an ultimate condition for, so he can really just move the way he wants to move. Austin Reeves has been playing at a very high level. He's been playing great basketball. He should, at this point, right, if he's able to, even if he doesn't sustain, like stay over 25 points a game, with the playmaking, with the rebounding, you know, probably should be an all-star this year. I would say. I would say he should probably be an all-star with the level at which he's playing and the seeding that the Lakers are in right now. But we shall see, because it's all-star voting and stuff can get ultra competitive. Now, let's get into what I'm worried about with the Lakers. I think as I watch the Lakers, and I watch 80% of the Lakers games, things that concern me. The Lakers do not generate nearly enough easy buckets in comparison to other great teams. OKC generates easy buckets predicated on the level of their defense, right? Turnovers, getting out in transition, easy buckets. The Spurs, defense, block shots, get out in transition, easy buckets, just athleticism and youth, easy buckets. The Rockets, offensive rebounding, the best offensive rebounding team in the NBA, kicking them out for threes, easy buckets. The Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic getting out in transition, pushing the pace from the center spot, making the easy pass every time, making the right read every time, easy buckets. The Lakers do not generate nearly enough easy buckets. And I think LeBron, once he gets conditioned, just him getting out in transition, being a smart player, making the right read will help with that. But still at 41, I don't know if, we're going to get enough easy buckets to close the gap. And I think when you're talking about being one of the best teams in the league and winning the games you're supposed to win, you have to generate easy buckets. And one of the problems that we've seen is that we don't generate easy buckets. Therefore, when we're having off nights, when we're having bad games, it all falls on the shoulders of like Luka to create everything for us, which he had to do against Phoenix. And that's just not a recipe for success. Anytime the offensive load falls on Luka solely, we get worse. The Lakers get worse. I say we like I'm playing. The Lakers get worse. And the team gets stagnant. The offense gets stagnant. It's a lot of standing. It's a lot of watching. The defense goes down. And the team just is not as good for it. All of the best games that the Lakers have played this season, it's been like Luka and Austin both have 30. Rui has 18 on really good efficiency. Larabia comes in, hits a 3 or 2 off the bench, right? It's all based on continuity and on, everybody getting involved, everybody playing at a high level. So the easy buckets concern me. Us being too Luka-centric at times, the Lakers being too Luka-centric at times concerns me. And then the lack of athleticism concerns me. Ability to defend at a high level consistently, that concerns me as well. The Lakers have been on the receiving end of a lighter schedule, I feel like. And I think the Lakers will start to be tested more and more. Got the Raptors tomorrow on Thursday, got Boston on Friday or Saturday. 2 really good teams that will allow them to compete. And we shall see, based on how they perform there, if they're going to, and there's still a lot of time left, but how they continue to grow and transform and get better. But it's just some things that I've noticed and I want to continue to look closely at. But that is it for me, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if I was tripping, if I was off base. Make sure to like the content, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, leave a comment. Let me know if I'm right on the money with the Lakers, or let me know where I'm off base. I think the Lakers have some work to do. But if they continue to put the work in, maybe make a trade here or there, get a wing defender, who knows, right? I like the roster as it is, but who knows? See if they get to a spot where they're a legitimate championship contender. But as always, guys, I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to the next one. And if you have any questions, drop a comment, leave it in the comments, and I'll make sure to get back to you. Peace.